Hi guys, it's Laura from Doggy U, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about what happened to Whip and I on Friday while we were out hiking and the lessons I learned from that and what you might be able to take away from it. The short story is Whip was injured and we were chased out of the woods by an aggressive deer, but there's a lot more to learn from this story, so stay tuned. So this Friday we were out in the woods like we normally are. My husband decided to come with us. So it was my husband, Eric, and I, and Jake, our cattle dog, on leash, and Whip off leash with her GPS collar. And we were out in the woods like on the same trail that I walk every single day and have for about 3 years now with the dogs. When Whip, I looked down and I noticed that Whip was really far away on our GPS, really far away, 200 yards. That is totally atypical for her. She always stays right near me. She typically goes into the woods, does a little zoomy lap, never more than 100 yards away, and then she comes back and is in sight. So I noticed she hadn't come back and checked on us within the last like minute or two, which is atypical for her. And so I looked down at the screen and then we hear barking. So we start yelling to recall Whip, and I can see on the GPS that her, the yardage is going down, and she was getting closer and closer to us, and I could start hearing her bell again. So she came running to us. We were about half a mile to 3/4 of the way into the woods, on the outside of our loop, and I looked and I could tell already she was injured. There was blood all over her. There's blood on all 4 of her feet. So it took me a minute to figure out what was going on. But basically, I couldn't tell at the time, but she had a serious puncture wound and had split open her paw pad. So I sent my husband back with Jake to go get the car. Our car was up at our house. Our house is maybe 3/4 of a mile to a mile away from where we were in the woods. And I thought he would be quicker. And I knew more about, doctoring injuries. So I sent him back to get the car, and I was gonna start carrying Whip out. While I'm checking out her foot, I see maybe 50 yards away, this deer who's in the woods but far back from us, and it starts making this weird hissing, growling, screaming kind of noise. But honestly, I didn't think much of it because I was really concerned about Whip. So I picked her up and I started carrying her out of the woods. So I'm carrying her and we go up over a hill, and as soon as I got over the hill, I knew we were in a lot of trouble. Sorry, it was super scary. So over the other side of the hill, now on my left-hand side, instead of behind us, is this large female deer. The deer made that same screaming, hissing sound at us, and I reached down to get what I typically bring, which is some sort of personal protection, and I realized I hadn't brought anything except for citronella spray. I was with my husband. I typically don't bring as much protection when I'm with my husband because it's 4 of us together, and for some reason I feel more safe that way, and I didn't intend on us getting split up. So I have nothing on me except citronella spray, so I pick that out of my container and I start running. And when I start running, the deer starts following us, and I'm carrying Whip in my arms at this point, and I realize we're in a lot of trouble and she's gonna have to run. So I put her down on the ground, and luckily her adrenaline is kicked into high gear just like mine is, and she's running, not 3-legged anymore, she's just running with me. The deer is chasing us, and it got within maybe 15 yards at this point before it was gonna overtake us. So I turned around, I grabbed a stick off of the ground, and I started beating the stick against a tree and screaming at it. And Whip turned around obviously with me too, and started barking at the deer while I'm screaming, and the deer stopped, but it didn't retreat. And that was probably the most scary thing that happened, because one would expect a flighty animal, when you're beating a stick against a tree and being very loud, to back off, and it didn't. So from there, we were maybe 1/3 of a mile to the edge of the forest. So I ended up doing this weird dance with the deer where I would back myself up, with the screaming, create some distance, turn around and run with Whip. As soon as we turned, the deer started following us again. So then we turned back around, scream, make a big scene. The deer would stop, we would back away, create some distance, and start running. The deer chased us like that all the way within 25 to 50 yards of the edge of the woods. As soon as we got about there, she stopped chasing us and instead just screamed a little bit at us and just walked at us instead of like this weird loping thing that she was doing. So I knew we were pretty safe there. We got to the road, I picked up Whip and I started running down the road, at which point my husband came with the car and I jumped in and put Whip in and, you know, cleaned up a little bit of the blood and got the heck out of there. So what happened? We went over what probably happened here, and our best guess with her is that she got somewhere within range of a fawn that this, you know, was obviously, this was the mother of that fawn, and the deer started chasing her off in the opposite direction of us. And when she heard us calling, she reoriented. I mean, she was, I'm sure, panicked, reoriented to us and started running back. We don't know when the puncture wound happened, but it was probably somewhere in that panic of her coming back to us. So she probably, you know, unbeknownst to us, there was some type of baby in the woods and she ended up getting between them or just within the vicinity, because this deer chased us for half a mile. So who knows, you know, where the baby even was. So coming back to us, I'm guessing she got the big wound. Once I assessed the injury, it ended up only being on one foot. The blood was just everywhere because it was a really bad injury. So we think that's what happened, that this was just a really aggressive, irate mama bear, or mama deer in this case. I had never heard of anything like this happening before. So deer were not something that I was afraid of in the woods. Bears, sure, other people, yeah. Deer was not something that I was ever concerned about when going into the woods, and I totally am now, especially female deer. But yeah, so that's what happened. We ended up rushing her to the emergency room. She ended up with a puncture wound and a split paw. They had to do stitches to heal it, and she's currently in like basically like a soft cast for the next couple weeks while that injury heals. So what did I learn from this encounter? Well, besides that deer are a lot more terrifying than one would naturally think while in the woods. First of all, I was thankful for my GPS collar. I'll put a link to that down below, and I'm gonna do a review on it because it can be quite a lifesaver. But at least we knew where she was, and if she had become totally injured, we would be able to go and find her based on our GPS. And the other thing was to carry personal protection all of the time. I do carry any combination of protection, but I think that the most useful for most situations is probably bear spray. So I had my citronella spray for dog fights, but obviously citronella spray and a deer isn't gonna come close enough, or hopefully isn't close enough that that's going to make an effect even if they get close to you. So bear spray is probably the thing that I will be carrying all of the time instead of just some of the time now. I typically carry a knife as well, mace, depending where I am. But now I know that no matter if you're with people, that doesn't make you more safe. Actually, I was kind of glad that Jake wasn't with us, because Jake definitely would have tried to protect us. And I was also glad I had put Whip on leash, so it made sure that she followed with me and we didn't get into any scary situations that way. So those are a couple of the things that I learned from this experience, and I just wanted to kind of share that with everyone, because as an avid hiker, I hike almost every day. I never would have seen deer, or particularly female deer, as a threat to me. I've hiked with deer forever. You know, my dogs hike with deer every morning. I mean, we see them multiple times a week, and have never had an issue like this before. And the thing about Whip is she is not a deer chaser. She is more like nervous about the deer than anything else. My cattle dog would chase deer if I didn't call him off. So, you know, he was on leash with us. But Whip is definitely more fearful of those kind of things. So I don't think this was a situation where she was chasing wildlife. It was likely that she got in between this mother, and you know, the mother just got irate and started targeting us, and to get us the heck out of there and away from her baby. So it's just something to think about when you're out in the woods and being prepared for whatever can happen and keeping your wits about you. Now, I will tell you that everything went in slow motion. I like had my wits about me enough to grab a stick and become big and, you know, protect us from the danger. But as soon as I got in the car, I was just all hyperventilation and sobs and all of that, because it was scary. And, you know, to be honest, since this happened, Whip has become a lot more reactive in the last week towards any noise that she hears outside. The other day, I was out relieving her and something came out of the bushes at us and I just screamed and ran. So we are having a little bit of adjustment from the incident, and I'm hoping it doesn't affect negatively my experiences in the woods. I think it will make me much more aware of all types of animals that are in the woods and that can pose a threat to humans, and will make me bring my protection every time that I go so that I don't have an incident like this again. So I guess that's mostly it. I wanted to kind of relay that story because I hadn't heard a story like that before. I never thought that deer would be a threat to me as a person, but it certainly turned out to be the case. And it's just a reminder that Mother Nature is powerful, and a mama and her babies, no matter what kind of mama, will want to protect those babies. So just, you know, be careful out there, plan, keep your wits about you, but stay safe out there. All right? Happy training, guys.